we're live.
Yes, we're live. Hello. Welcome to our first official episode of Link Up Leaders podcast. I am Lisa. I'm joined with my co-host Francois. And today we have the very exciting guest, Ken Wilson. He is the co-host of Firing the Man podcast, everybody's favorite show. Ken, how are you doing?
I'm excellent. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, this is awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Ken, I've got to tell you, I'm sorry to cut you off, Lisa, but I have to tell you, I cannot get our episode or the name of your podcast out of my head. I call every single podcast that I've been on, oh, that's the Fire the Man podcast.
That's awesome. That makes me happy.
Lisa hates it.
I don't, it's just frustrating. I'm like, have you confirmed with so-and-so? He goes, Firing the Man. I said, you recorded that 4 weeks ago or however long it was. And I'm like, no, somebody else.
Classic. That's awesome.
Well, thank you for joining us on our show. I was going to say, let's talk a little bit about the mission and the origins of Firing the Man. So we know a little bit about it, but for those that haven't happened to find your show yet, what is it all about?
Sure. Absolutely. So my business partner, David, and I, so I'll back it up. About 4 years ago, I started a business on the side, like a side hustle, and it started growing and growing. And my girlfriend was tired of, hearing me say like, hey, this new conversion tactic I learned, or, hey, I'm sourcing this product. And so she's like, you need to go meet other people. So I went to a meetup, and I met David, and him and I clicked right out of the gate. And so it was his meetup. And after every meetup, we would stay for an hour or more because people would have questions and have questions and have questions. And so we just decided one day, we were exhausted after the meetup. We were having a beer, and we just looked at each other and we're like, hey, you want to start a podcast? He's like, yeah, let's do it. And so the podcast is it's designed around following David and my journey on growing and building a business, and then exiting our corporate day jobs. And so I was a network engineer at one point, and David was a CPA. And so and we want to inspire everyone to, hey, this is possible. We're just two normal guys, and this is how we've done it.
And the name of the show comes from the idea of, firing the man, not working for corporate anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And have we accomplished that?
He did in July, right?
Yeah. Last June, I fired the man, and after a very long time. And David, I believe his podcast episode has aired already. So he fired the man just recently. So.
Well, congratulations to both of you. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Very
thank you.
Exciting. Yeah. No, so before that, tell me a little bit more about your e-commerce journey. And I know you had, obviously your girlfriend was tired of hearing about you. It sounds like a lot of what my girlfriend's tired of hearing about sourcing, but
yeah,
tell me a little bit more about that. How did that go?
Yeah, sure. So about 4 years ago, what started as an idea, my daughter was like, hey, check out this YouTube video. And I looked at it and I saw someone it was an ad for an FBA course. And I looked at it and I was like, that looks interesting. And so I started just going down that rabbit hole. And within 2 months, I had an LLC. I was sourcing products, and I was selling products within 2 or 3 months. And with the whole purpose of I've been in a corporate environment for 15 years at that point, and I'm like, this is a drag. This is kind of not what I want to do. I want to try to find a way out of this. And so that was 4 years ago. And, slowly over time, the business grew. I started a second business, and that one grew. And then it got to a point where, I'm making more money growing my business, and then I'm working 16 hours a day. And so at some point I had to leave my day job. So.
And so how much time were you putting into sort of that e-commerce side? I'm guessing, was it just like you were laying in bed and you were just scrolling through it? Or was it like you set certain hours? Did you say like 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. and from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. or just lunches? How did that go?
Sure. So I read this book, Miracle Morning. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. So I read that book, and it made me feel really lazy. And so I started getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, And so I would work. Yeah, I would start my morning early, and I would get a couple hours in early in the morning before anyone was awake. And then I would also work whenever my family went to bed or whatever. I would stay up for 2 or 3 hours at night. So I was probably putting in between 4 and 6 hours a day, and then probably 4 hours on the weekend. So it was a grind for the first couple of years.
So yeah, you definitely had that grit. The grit that I don't see a lot of people that, kind of get sucked into these gurus courses have. Like they think it's really just a side hustle where, hey, I'm just going to buy a product, list it, make money, have this passive income. So that wasn't really your experience. It was more of, hey, this is a job. This is I have to put hours into this.
Yeah, you know that old saying, if it's too good to be true, then it probably is. Then
Yeah.
yeah, like this is not I think any business or any venture that you get into is going to take a lot of hard work. And I probably at every 20 things I tried, one of them worked, and then I try another 20 things. And then I had two things that worked. And then so it was just repetition and trying, absorbing as much as possible. I took a few courses. Yeah, it was a lot of hard work.
So with the courses, because I wouldn't say adamant about calling some of the bullshit on them, but there is some bullshit involved. Like some of them say, it's kind of cookie cutter. You can find any factory by just sending them this list of questions, and this is how this works. But sort of, what was your experience with associating the courses with your real, I guess, just sourcing experience, supply chain experience, the buying, the factory communications? How did that relate to both of them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And to your point of bullshit courses, there are a lot of courses out there that are a waste of money and several $1,000s. And I definitely don't recommend. The courses that I did buy were not super expensive, and I vetted them. I watched their free content on YouTube for a really long time before I ever bought a course. And the content that a couple of the courses that put out, I would say 70% of it was relevant. It was kind of going through the material and it worked. But to your point of, you know, dealing with suppliers in China or India or wherever and negotiating terms, and this is not something that is easy, and it's not something that everyone can realistically accomplish. It's pretty difficult. When I started this company, I was in my late 30s. It wasn't like I was in college or high school, and so I had a lot of experience behind me before I started that. So, and some of those aspects are, in this world, you have to kind of wear 10 different hats and put on the other hats as you go down the line.
Yeah.
And but it is you can accomplish it. It just takes a lot of work.
No, that's perfect. I got the answer out of you that I was looking for.
Yeah, all right, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that the courses should be approached with, cautious apprehension of, okay, maybe taking your approach of watching the free content and seeing how legitimate they are. But I mean, I'd say 70% applicable information is pretty good. That's, I don't know, a little better than some college degrees. So that's.
I would say that, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a course is something where you can pay to get ahead if it's the right way. But yeah, like to your point, Lisa, you definitely watch all the free content, absorb everything you can, and then pull the trigger on that. Not just if you see a flashy TikTok video or a Facebook ad, don't just like click it and start buying stuff, because it's not going to work.
So we should not buy GameStop and use Robinhood for day trading for all of our investments. Is that what you're saying here, Ken?
That is a whole other topic, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's again, it's just something that I haven't been too much when it comes to pushing. I work with some awesome courses and coaches, and I know for a fact they provide some very invaluable content that you would not get otherwise. But the one stickler I've always had, and obviously because we come from this sourcing and supply chain background, is that you can apply that same concept. You can talk to every factory the exact same way. You're going to have the exact same experiences from one in India to one in Vietnam to one in China. And I'm guessing you worked with suppliers around the world, not just in one country, or?
Yes, yeah, we have suppliers in China, getting ready to have some in Vietnam and a couple in the U.S.
And so how did that come about? Are you just browsing Alibaba and sort of seeing what sticks and vetting them? And I mean, obviously you've been doing this a while, so you fired the man. so, so I'm guessing
Sure.
it's working out.
Yeah, so it was a grind to kind of figure it out, and I am by no means a sourcing expert. I know enough to do what I'm doing, but like when I first started, it was just hopping on Alibaba and reaching out to suppliers, and I kind of had the early days was get a bunch of samples, vet them, and kind of go through that. My process has matured quite a bit now. I have
Mhm.
a VA has a process for sourcing, and I also have a sourcing agent in China that I can use. But yeah, I mean, I still do some of the Alibaba global sources type work.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Is there like a horror story that you have? I know a lot of the sellers that I've spoken to, some of them have gotten scammed out of like a container. Has anything like that ever happened to you?
I have not been scammed out of anything. I mean, I've
Better
had I've
knock on wood
lost.
there.
Right, right. Not to say that doesn't happen, because I do personally know someone that's been scammed out of thousands of dollars. For me, it hasn't happened, but yeah, I approach it very cautiously, and use protected forms of payment if I can, and different things.
Mhm.
I mean, the majority of suppliers are legitimate. You're
Yeah.
always going to have a bad apple here and there. So, but me personally, I've not been burned yet.
Good.
That's
Good.
very
Good for
lucky.
you.
But I'm
Yeah. I mean, having
sure
a sourcing agent helps, I'm sure.
I was gonna say, I'm sure you do your due diligence for sure.
Yeah, yeah, try to check all the boxes and make sure, try to mitigate all the risk if you can, because
Mhm.
it's there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, I want to. Do you have another question? Because I want to jump in because I have a question for him.
No, I get into rabbit holes and they're
I
not
know
good.
you
So
do.
you can go ahead.
Well, I just to go a little further back into your personal history. You are a U.S. Army vet, so thank you very much for your service. So, but you being a vet does not surprise me, the grit that you had for working on this side hustle and being so dedicated and disciplined to it. But what I'm interested in is making that shift from working for the man and in corporate America to being a full-time entrepreneur, because I think most people have a little bit of a side hustle and you can manage both, but like for me personally, I'm going from a larger business to this startup, and it's a huge mental shift. I can't, walk us through what it's like to go from working from somebody else to entirely working on your own.
Sure. Yeah. So that's it's pretty exciting, something new that I'm experiencing. But so rewinding it 2 or 3 years, I was a lead network engineer for a Fortune 500, and every year, I was putting in tons of hours, tons of work, leading a team of engineers, and I had 2 years in a row where they said, "Oh, the company didn't make as much money, and so blah blah blah. You're not getting a raise." And I'm like, oh, okay. So that happened 2 years in a row, and I thought, I have to take control of my life, because like if I don't take control, someone else is going to just keep feeding me these sandwiches that I don't want to eat, right? So that was a mindset shift that I had, and that really it propelled me to work harder and to drive me to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and work on my business, because I saw, there was about a year after I started my business. I woke up one morning and I made more money as a in my own business than I did as an engineer, and I thought, this is possible. So let me shift my focus and do that. And so, after I resigned my position and started full time, it was kind of eye opening to me. I had a massive amount of time on my schedule, and I thought, okay, well, what, like, how do I fill this? And so I think it's a constant struggle of being an entrepreneur. It's really hard when you see opportunity. You always want to say yes. So you can easily fill up those hours if you want to, or you can say, hey, I'm gonna do these other things that's gonna make me happy, or that's gonna drive more value. Where can I add the most impact? And so it's been interesting to have a wide open schedule and to not have to go, I can free up a whole lot of my brain power. I don't manage a work schedule and a team of people. That all got erased. And so now it's like, it, I mean, in a nutshell, it's made me a lot happier.
Good. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Good, good. But I doubt that that's for everyone. I feel like a lot of people that I talk to, they like being told sort of what to do. And hey, I'm going to come in. I am going to work on these projects that I've been planning for the past month. It definitely takes a certain type of person, someone that's very independent, right?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. You're absolutely right. Some people just want to, they want to have an assignment and they want to work on it and they want to go home and and they have no interest or desire to do anything else besides what makes them feel comfortable. And that's okay. Like there is a lot of different people in this world. My girlfriend, I don't think she wants to have a project and that's it. And she doesn't want to have 30,000 things floating around to figure out, right? Whereas an entrepreneur, I enjoy problem solving and figuring things out and how they work. And my level of my risk tolerance is a lot higher than some other ones too. I have this sign right here, burn the boats.
I'm so curious.
Yeah. Have you guys have heard of burn the boats before?
No.
Okay, so it's a phrase. It's the same from Cortez. He was Spanish conquistador, and he landed, I believe it was South America, and he just had several hundred or maybe 1,000 troops, and they were going to take over the Mayans, and the Mayans had a large army, and so he gave the order to burn the boats, and basically like there's no going home. You either conquer the Mayan army or you're done. And so I kind of live by that motto now. Like I'm not going back to corporate America. I'm gonna make it happen.
Wow, I like that.
Yeah, you hear that, Ken's girlfriend? He is not putting the toilet seat down. That is where it's staying. He burned that boat.
That's awesome.
That is an awesome motto to live by. I love that.
Yeah,
we're gonna have
cool.
to look into that. Get a little sign also. You're gonna see one on my wall next time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think if you give yourself an escape, if you give your mind an escape, it'll take it. So you gotta take that escape away.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love that mindset. I wish more people share that mindset actually, because a lot of times when it comes to e-commerce, particularly, I mean, the information is out there. Everything can be Googled. It's not, hey, I want and I hear it all the time. I want a cup. I'm like, well, what do you want of that cup? Do you want like, ceramic? They're like, I don't know. Can you tell me? I'm like, no.
Do you want it to
Google
have a sweater?
Yeah. Do you want a little sweater on your cup? I mean, Google, you can Google it and you can find out 50,000 different items on Amazon. And then you go on Alibaba, you can find 50,000 different items there. But I mean, I love that mindset. I don't know what else to say about it.
And I like it too. But I think back to like when you made, obviously you've been doing this for some time, but when you made the full shift, we were very much so still in the swing of COVID. And that's almost, that gives me a little panic because you don't have an escape plan. And if you put all of these eggs in this basket of this industry that is so heavily impacted by this everything is, but I mean, logistics and sourcing and everything, I mean, how you clearly had seen the shift having been doing the e-commerce for some time, but what impact did it have on your business and on your product specifically, COVID making that full-time shift? I mean, what did you experience with that?
Yeah, sure. So to take it back, my plan for leaving my day job was set in motion before COVID really took over. So that was going to happen either way. But COVID, obviously, the niches that my businesses are in were impacted positively by COVID, and I saw there are some industries were shut down and some were tripled. And so I kind of fell in that upper side of that. And so I'm very fortunate and grateful that happened. And, the other thing is, as humans, we're creatures of habit. And I see the e-commerce market penetration like doubled in 2020. And I'm like, my parents who are in their 70s, they were buying stuff online now. And I'm like, they're not going to go back to going to the store when they figured out, hey, I can get this on my doorstep in 2 days. They're going to continue to do that. So that market penetration is not going to go away. And so it made me feel comfortable. Like, yeah, I'm in the right space. I'm in a good space. So COVID had a positive impact.
Interesting.
And so I keep hearing you mention e-commerce, and you're not just saying Amazon. So what are you sort of in? There's a tons of different platforms out there, but is there any specific ones that like you like to stay within?
Yeah, absolutely. So my businesses are, 90% Amazon is the sales channel, and they were 100% for the first 2.5 years. And then I realized, I need to add diversity. There's other markets as I learned this e-commerce space more. So right now, I'm currently selling on Amazon. I have niche the branded websites. Just taking one of the brands into Walmart, eBay, and Etsy, and pretty soon international Amazon marketplaces as well. This year we're adding 3 international marketplaces. So
No, that's awesome. And then
Very
when you
cool.
say Walmart, like Walmart Marketplace or Walmart the stores?
Walmart marketplace.
Okay. Yeah, brick and mortar would be a completely different beast. It's dealing with, all the distribution channels and
Yeah,
3PLs and stuff.
yeah. My size of business, it would get crushed with if Walmart brick and mortar started trying to place orders.
Yeah.
That's something I would want to scale into.
And that's hard. I mean, just scaling off of Amazon to begin with, that I imagine that was a pain. And just going from Walmart to having your own stores and doing all the multi-channel fulfillment. How did you stay positive throughout this whole thing? Because I would imagine, I personally, this is why I don't get into e-commerce, because I would dive into way too many rabbit holes to even get one done. And I would get frustrated. I'd probably quit, or I would pivot to something else. How did you stay positive throughout the entire process?
Sure. No, it's a good question. And, I think positive, I try to always have a positive mindset, but I think more of a mitigating risk. As, from my background, I'm always in cybersecurity. I'm always like, how can I mitigate my risk? How can I mitigate my risk? And going into other sales channels, I've had, anybody that sells on Amazon has known like Amazon, they don't treat their third party sellers very well. And you can get, your product pages can get just removed or suspended or whatever. And so I went through a couple of those where my hero products got taken down or whatever, and so I'm like, I have to add these other channels to have a viable backup if this happens. And so I'm like, it's in terms of being positive, it's more like, hey, I need to make this happen, or I'm not going to have any backup if Amazon shuts me down here. So, but I by nature I'm a problem solver, and so when I'm like, okay, I want to go and sell my stuff on Walmart, well, then I just go and figure that out until either I realize I can't do that, there's a problem why, or I've made it happen.
Yeah. Again, going back to Google. Google can be everyone's best friend. Lisa asked me some questions, or I'll ask Lisa some questions. Before I ask her, I'm like, I should probably Google that first. I should probably go ahead and do that.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Always your response to me. Did you Google it? I'm like,
Did you? Well, I mean, if you think
I figured
about
you already
it,
knew this.
if you have to Google it or I have to Google it, then we both have to Google it.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Now everything could be figured out, and it's just a matter of how much time do you want to invest into it. And if you're an entrepreneur like yourself, all you have is time, and so you just have to invest that time appropriately.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to figure out what's gonna bring you the most ROI or help you out on your journey, and yeah, just go after it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then going back to your e-commerce businesses, and I'm not going to ask you what's your best-selling product, but I think one thing that's always top of everyone's mind is, how do you find, or like, what do you look for in a good product, or something that you sort of want to dive into?
Sure. So specifically speaking on Amazon, When I first started, I was selling, I first started in retail arbitrage, where I would go and source products from, Walmart or Target or wherever, and then resell them. And then I moved into online arbitrage, where I was buying web versions, shipping them in, and now I'm in private label. And when I first started private label, I tried a bunch of different products, and I found the one that worked, and then I built a brand around that. And so, okay, if if my coffee mug with a sweater, if it sold really well, what else could someone use that drinks coffee with a sweater on there? Maybe a warmer, a USB coffee warmer,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe flavored packets for the coffee or whatever. And so that's kind of, I found a hero product, and then I just built products around that. And as I go, deeper into the journey, I figure out, okay, now I want to move up into, I want to find products that other people are not selling, because Amazon is getting swamped with, their catalog is so big. And
Mm-hmm.
so I find stuff that's maybe breakable, or all the gurus, we talked about it earlier, they teach this certain method. Oh, it's, it needs to be between this price and this price, fit in a shoebox, and all these things. And so I try to look outside of those and say, okay, let me think outside of the box here. Let me sell a $99 product, because not many people are going to sell that. And so that's kind of how I find a hero product and the brand, and then I just build out the products that will support that, because you can also cross sell and upsell, and do different e-commerce tricks as well around that.
But so I imagine that wasn't always the process, though. You didn't always, or maybe it was. Was it?
No. So when I
Okay.
first started, I literally got one of the popular tools, Jungle Scout Helium 10. I
Mm-hmm.
ran all the queries and filters, and found what fit in a shoebox, and I did that whole bit. And so it worked, but the competition was fierce. And so now I've pivoted into, hey, what's going to bring me the most ROI?
What's
So,
the
oh, go ahead.
Sorry, just curious. What's the mentality behind a product that fits in a shoebox? Because I
I think
Amazon
that's
will
like dimensions, the
was
volume, and
is
all
it
that
like
stuff.
have to do with like FBA storage or something? Because
Yeah.
Amazon will send me this mug in a box that'll fit a couch. So I don't understand.
Right. Yeah. So it's fulfillment fees and storage.
Okay.
Yeah, by volume. And so if you're, in oversized items, they charge way more. So for a small undersized item, like, a mouse or something, they're going to charge,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 250 to ship that. But if it's over 18 inches, it's going to be $12. And so
Got
you could
it.
have a $10 product that would cost $2 to ship, or $10 to ship. So
Okay. That makes much
Mm.
more sense. Go ahead,
yeah.
Francois. I cut you off.
And then to pry a little bit deeper into that beginning stage. So when you started, let's say you started off with like just mugs, and I know you mentioned that you tried a few different products. Were you investing like a few $100s, a few $1,000s? Were you just buying them on AliExpress? I think one thing that a lot of sellers that are just starting out tend to get confused on is just that aspect. They're like, well, can I start with $200 and just buy 20 of them and try that on Amazon? How did you start? Was it like 5 products and then $200 of each, or?
Sure. It was like I started, one product, then two, then three, which it also got me in trouble, because to your point, you can't start a physical products business without, in my opinion, five or $10,000. It's not feasible, because what will happen is you'll make an order, and you'll get, an MOQ for 50 units, and send them in. And if the lead time is, 60 days or 90 days, well, if those sell out, if they sell really well, they're going to sell out in a couple of weeks, and then you're going to wait, for a couple of months to get more. And if you don't have enough cash flow you might have to make 3 inventory orders before Amazon's going to pay you. So you need to have a decent amount of cash flow when you start, or your product's going to sell out. You're going to lose all your rankings. And so it's kind of this flywheel effect. You'll hear that a lot. Flywheel for Amazon. You want to keep it moving. You have to keep inventory in there and keep it moving. And so that takes a tremendous amount of cash flow. That's one of the things that is, it usually hurts an Amazon business if you do not have cash flow. So, but starting out, it's a juggling game. I'm going to be honest with you. I used my personal savings. I used credit cards. I scaled rapidly, and it worked out for me. It doesn't work out for everyone. And because you might launch a product that fails, and then you're out a lot of money. And if you only had that one nest egg to try, then you got to go back to the drawing board, save up more money, and try it again. So
Yeah.
it's always good to start out with a test order, and if it works, great. Let's improve it and get more. But definitely have that cash on hand to fund that inventory.
And what was your mindset behind when you were testing those? Was that more so like, hey, I'm going to source 50 of this $2 product and, make $200? Was that to make the profit of it, or was that to learn the process while just breaking even? Or were you comfortable with, hey, if I lose this money, I'm going to lose this money?
So for me personally, testing this out, this was money that I had written off, like, hey, I'm going to try this, and I've
Like
got a few
gambling.
$1,000. Yeah, I'm going to see if it works. And well, by the point I launched a private label product, I had been selling on Amazon for 6 or 9 months with retail arbitrage and online arbitrage. So I kind of knew the process. And so I knew the ins and outs, and I had friends that were selling private labels. So I knew that it worked. And it was just a matter of how can I figure it out. And so I had a little bit of more, I had some confidence that it would work. And so whenever I had a decision to buy, 50 units or 500 units, I leaned more towards the 500 because I had a level of confidence that I could make it work.
Okay.
But
And
it is
then
a gamble.
I know arbitrage works a little bit differently. That's something where you just like list under somebody else's listing, right? And you can, is that the hijacking, or what they
Um,
call the hijacking?
so that's kind of two different things. Let's say you're selling Clorox bleach, for example, and you
Mhm.
went and you found a distributor. You could get the Clorox bleach for a certain amount of price. Say you got it for $2 and it's selling on Amazon for 6. You list it on there, and there's 25 other people that are selling that. And so the buy box rotates, and you sell one for every 25, or however the algorithm works, right? Now, hijacking is when someone, like for a private label seller, if you were selling, coffee mugs with sweaters, and they were, Lisa brand coffee mugs, and then someone comes onto Lisa's brand coffee mugs listing and says, I'm going to sell a Lisa's brand coffee mug, and they don't have that product, and so that's a hijacker.
Gotcha. I was always
That's
confused about that.
That's
Yeah.
actually a good business idea. I alone own probably 50 coffee mugs. So
Right?
that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a whole niche.
And so obviously the course has probably helped with this. But in your journey, I mean, there's things like PPC, there's, obviously setting in the inventory, making sure that you have the right PPI or IPI. And that's constantly changing. At what point during your private label journey were you just comfortable with like PPC, or did you always outsource that? Or did you keep that in-house?
So yeah, I mean that's a great question, and there are a lot of like I said earlier, there's a lot of hats that you wear, and for me personally, I have to understand the entire process. Being an engineer, I need to know how it works, and so I've always like figured things out, and then once I know how it works, if I can outsource it or if somebody else can take it over, and I have confidence in that, then I go that route, and so. My PPC, I started PPC early on, and that is one thing that I outsourced. I knew a little bit about it, enough to make it work, but I was not good at it, and I was not interested in spending my time there. And so I outsourced that to an agency once my sales increased to a level where it made sense financially. I had a business case. Okay, I can outsource this because it costs a decent amount of money
For the agency.
for the agency to run the PPC. Correct.
Gotcha. And so what is your favorite aspect? Since you're outsourcing certain aspects, what is like that one thing that you hold true to yourself? Is that sort of the product research and selection and the sourcing?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different aspects. I'm actually I really like conversion optimization, and I see like tremendous amount of value in increasing the conversion rates, because if I can increase my conversion rates, it makes the PPC cheaper, it increases sales, it makes that. So I think there's one thing I can add of value and that I like. Like you can kind of study the customer, study the buying habits, and so I would say conversion optimization is and SEO is kind of the thing that I really enjoy working on.
Conversion optimization. And I am ignorant to this, so
Sure.
don't mind if this is a stupid question, but what is that?
Yeah,
Like, what
no,
does that mean?
absolutely. So, so let's say you land on, Lisa's sweater coffee mug listing, right? And then it shows a picture of a coffee mug, right? And then the next image is a picture of just the same coffee mug, but like maybe on a different side. And then the next one is maybe just has a different background. And so there's a kind of basic product images. And so, and then let's say you send 100 customers to that listing and 5 of them buy. That's a 5% conversion rate. So, and if you paid for 100 of them to go over there, $1 each, you're paying $100 to get them there, and you made 5 sales. Now let's back up a bit and think about, okay, how can we get someone to look at that and maybe change their mind into buying? And so we take the second image and we put a little infographic with the diameters of the cup. Oh, it's 5 inches tall and 3 inches wide, and then it has a little bubble. It says the sweater's made of organic wool, or we put a little sticker. It says made in USA. We add all these little tweaks to make people trigger emotion and make them want to buy that. Like, how is this product? The third image could be how that product is better than all of the competitors, maybe a side-by-side comparison. And so then we test that for the next month and we see, okay, we sent 100 people there and 20 of them bought. And so our conversion increased 15% to 20. And so it makes PPC cheaper, you make more money. And so I really like that aspect. It's a problem for me to solve. And it adds the most value to my business.
You're like a e-commerce psychologist, getting us to
Yes, well, that's what it is. Well, and I love that these are recorded because I actually knew what that was and you did not. And there's very few that I know that you don't know. So this is exciting. But yeah, you essentially, when it comes to like those product images and things, and I never pronounce these right, but you have to kind of implement your logo's ethos and pathos, don't you? Like the logical purchasing, the emotional purchasing, and then I forget which one pathos is, but you have to emote those reactions from folks to get them to buy and kind of manipulating the listing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the better you are at that, the cheaper the PPC is, and the more sales, and you're just adding more value to the customer, right? And the more you can, it's one of those things where you want to brag, right? Like this is the spot where you want to brag the most, right here is how good your product is and how it's better than everyone else's.
Right.
And so would that also, I know we're talking about the pictures, but does that also have to do with like the listing and the pricing? Because some people just, they'll make an impulse. I'm very actually guilty of it. I'll make an impulse purchase just based on the cheapest product. I end up regretting it every time I ended up get a product and I see it and I'm like, damn, that is not what I wanted. I don't return it because I'm like, I bought it. I mean, I might as well keep it. Might as well use it someday. But is it more than just the picture? Do you also play around with the pricing and the listing?
Yeah, absolutely. There's kind of a science to it. You want to split test a lot of different things, but some of the top items, review count, and review stars, specifically on Amazon, right? You have anything over 4 stars is going to convert really well. If you have 4.5, it's going to convert more. 5 is like dynamite. Pricing is huge. That's something that you have to play with pricing because you get a lot of shoppers like Francois where they just want to buy the lowest one, or some that want to buy the highest quality one. So it's kind of you have to play around with it and test it. But yeah, definitely reviews, images, pricing. Those are 3 of the top 5 things to tweak if you're trying to increase your conversions.
And reviews. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm going to shift into another topic. So go ahead. It's not another, but I'm going to make a transition. So
again, this is going to be a problem. I go into rabbit holes. When it comes to reviews, a very hot topic, right? Because everyone has different perspectives on should you allow sellers to give out free products or use I know Amazon has some sort of review system for early purchasers, but from what I've heard, sometimes it's a little bit of bullshit to it, and sometimes there's you could go through ManyChat, and I just hear all these different angles. Is there any perspective or a position that you take when it comes to reviews?
Yeah, so my personal perspective and how I apply it to my businesses is that I provide the highest quality product that I can to the customers, and the market will dictate what the reviews are. And so I constantly improve the products. I read through them, have my team look through them and say, hey, we're getting complaints because this product is not doing this, and so hey, can we fix that? Yes, boom, go back out there. You'll improve the reviews that way. Reviews are something on Amazon that are, you kind of alluded to it. It is a constant problem. I don't want to bad talk on your podcast, but fake
Do it.
reviews they're a massive problem on Amazon. And so depending on what space you're in, if you're competing with, Chinese sellers, Chinese factories to be specific, there's a lot of fake review manipulation going on Amazon, and it's definitely a problem. But for me, I just try to provide the best product I can, and I also reach out to customers. Offering a free product for a review is against Amazon's terms of service. You cannot do that. So,
Yeah.
but there is, like what you mentioned, Francois. There's an early reviewer program. So Amazon basically said, "Hey, we're just going to profit from these reviews," and then they started up this early reviewer program, and so you can give Amazon's people free products for a review. So it's kind of interesting, but it's only a certain amount, and your listing has to have less than say 20 reviews, and you can do it very early on, which is really helpful for a product launch. Which I've used it several times and it works well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I learned through working here and being on, some of the Amazon Facebook pages and stuff that you're not actually allowed to ask for a review for a free product or anything like that. But then the next day I get something in the mail that's like, give us a review, we'll send, and I'm like, this isn't allowed. How did they get this?
Yeah, it runs rampant on Amazon, and I buy products myself on Amazon, and I get them, and I'm like, sometimes I'll take a picture and post it in my private masterminds. Hey, look at this, but yeah,
That's funny.
yeah, and I ripped on Chinese factories earlier. I mean, it could be U.S. sellers, it could be anybody doing that, but that is against terms of service. You can ask for a review, an honest review, but you cannot ask for a 5-star review, or hey, or you cannot trade products for free products for reviews. But I do and Amazon is on the fence. They're Amazon's customers. They're not my customers. They're Amazon's customers. So they really have a fine line of the marketing, how a third-party seller can market to Amazon's customers. And so I tread that line as fine as I can. Try to provide value, but also not go against the terms of service. So I do ask for a review, but I ask for an honest review in my card that I send.
Gotcha. So you are doing all this optimization, your product is selling really well, you're increasing your conversions. So how has it been recently with COVID's impact on logistics of finally getting that to either the product into the US or your product to your consumer? What's that been like as of late? And maybe not even necessarily for FBA, but for your other channels as well.
Yeah, so you guys probably know as well as I do, sourcing and logistics for the last 10 months has just been a nightmare. So there were months where last April I sold out of most of all of my inventory, and it took me 3 to 4 months to even get more inventory from China over. And since then, freight has been through the roof, and it's been delayed. The shutdowns have delayed it. Sourcing the raw materials are really hard to get, or long lead times. And so I've had to open up or source a warehouse space and on the West Coast, and I actually made larger orders and stored the inventory in this warehouse, and I've kind of used that as a buffer because Amazon's inventory restrictions, they only allow you to send in so much, and so you can't keep up. And it's a really like you mentioned earlier, the IPI. If you're out of stock of something for more than a couple of months, your IPI goes down, then you can't send any more in, and it's kind of this loop. And so I've had to, I've eaten into my profit margin by having to store products in a warehouse just to keep them in stock. And I've also, got a 3PL now, and so which is better because I was forced to get a 3PL, so now I have a little bit more diversity in my sales channel, so I can use Amazon to fulfill orders on most other marketplaces, and then I can also use my 3PL to fulfill orders on all of them as well.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question. Are you increasing your prices because they're costing you more? Because I'm thinking from a consumer mindset, am I paying more because of all this? Or like I know Texas is going through the whole winter storm, and now a lot of companies that were in Texas, they're saying, well, it was great because we could have this 2-day shipping and it could ship to both coasts fairly quickly. But now should we have 3PLs on both coasts instead? Are you playing that into your profit margin? Are you increasing your prices at all?
Yeah, so on one of my brands, it's very defensible, and it has a moat around it. I have lots of IP protection, and
Okay.
so I did increase prices by 20%. And then on my other brand, it doesn't have. It's more of a commodity product, and I did not increase prices. So it's kind of hitting the bottom line there. And yeah, it's kind of a balancing act because if you raise prices, you lose sales volume, and so it's a fine line.
And I'm sure that practice is going to differ from product to product,
Yeah,
depending on what industry folks are in.
absolutely. Depending on what your niche is, if you can, I think personally, you should always test raising your prices. It's something that I think a lot of Amazon sellers, especially, are maybe afraid of or have never tried. But I raised prices, like I said, on one of my brands January 1st, and now I'm in month 2, and sales have actually increased, and so the profit margin is increased substantially. So it's actually helped, and I was scared to raise prices, and I'm like, I don't know, but it was a good decision to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you said IP. Is that something you have like a patent on, or is that just something that's so out of this world that no one else is going to invest in molding or tooling? Or do you want to talk about any of that? If you don't want to, we could also just skip that. But
No, no,
if you're
no.
comfortable with it.
Yes, I'm comfortable. So I don't have any patents. The IP that I have on one of my brands is I'm in the arts and crafts niche, and it's on copyright infringement for artwork, and so no one else couldn't sell that artwork.
How hard
Gotcha.
was that? Because I get that question a lot. Now I'm not a copyright lawyer. Obviously, I'm not in that space at all.
You're
But
not a lawyer?
was that?
Really?
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer. As much as I like to debate, um, yeah, was that hard? What was the process with it? Is it with a foreign manufacturer?
Yeah. So this product line, the supplier is in China, and so I have actually licensed um, the designs, and so that's the IP protection. Basically, no one else can sell those designs, and I've also filed and have received multiple copyrights on additional designs that are from within my team, and so then now the business holds those copyrights, and so that process was fairly easy. It probably took me 30 minutes. I did it myself, and it's pretty cheap, maybe I don't know, maybe $10-$20 a design or something. Yeah, it was not that hard. So
Oh,
We're
that
gonna
is
have to
cheap.
connect after this. You can
sure.
start your own consulting for copyright. You don't have to be the copyright lawyer.
Right.
You can white label it.
Yeah, I'll
No,
put,
that's that's
yeah.
awesome. That's something I feel like not enough businesses do. They definitely have some awesome designs and ideas. Just copyright isn't something that many people consider IP or attainable, as opposed to like patent, which I think is 1,000 times harder.
I would agree. And I've talked to several I was going to get a patent on one of the companies last year, and I talked to a patent attorney, and he was like, "Hey, it's a minimum $5,000." And he's like, it's not about this upfront money. It's, do you have the money to protect that next year when it's granted? And I was like, no, like I want to have that IP. So when I sell my company, it's worth more and I can protect it. But, he was like, you really need a lot of money to protect it. And so I didn't go that route. And what I would say, to the listeners is that the copyright, that project that I had that on my back burner for months. I'm not going to lie, because I was like, I don't know how to do that. And so it sat. And then finally, I had some downtime and I said, I'm just going to push through this barrier. So I went on and I did it. And I regret not doing it, several months ago. So that is an easy process. If you want to get images copyrighted or designs or whatever it is, that is a fairly easy process that almost anyone can do.
Well, good. You burned the boat there.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
No, that's good.
And I imagine with patents, I know nothing about it, but you almost have to be really careful with what you're patenting. And I only say that because I watched an episode of Shark Tank, and these guys had lights inside of a cooler that as you lifted the lid, they lit up, and it was for like nighttime fishing or something like that. And one of the sharks was like, did you get a patent on having lights in a cooler or these lights in this cooler? And they were like, no, we did it on everything. I'm like, if it's $5,000 for a patent and my heavens, of course you guys need funding behind this. If you have to get something for everything.
Yeah. I saw that same episode. I love Shark Tank, and yeah, I agree. Like when you go down the rabbit hole of a patent, I think there's a time and place for a patent. I don't think it's in a super small business. I think it's maybe in more of a business that's, has more assets, and unless you have a unique idea and you have a lot of money, otherwise it could sink you, or it could drag you down a rabbit hole and cost way more money than and not even be valid. But
jeez.
So we're coming up on the top of the hour here. What would be your number one piece of advice for anybody who's either looking to start their e-commerce journey or transition from doing it part-time to full-time? And I'm actually stealing this question from David because he suggested it. So thank you, David.
Yeah, sure. So a couple of things from having a side hustle into going full-time. I would say, surround yourself with like-minded people. We generally pick up on things from anybody that we're around, and so we slowly become that kind of a person. And so if you're looking to be a full-time small business owner, an entrepreneur, then I would say the more time you can spend around those kinds of people, is you will naturally progress towards that. And the other thing I would say is mindset. Find a mentor, a coach, someone that's been there, someone that's working full time for themselves as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, and have them as a resource to use, because that's, you almost have to have that. It's how you learn. And then lastly, I would say, burn the boats. Just decide on what you want to do, and then take away that escape. Right? There's no escape, and then just go for it.
That's awesome.
God, those are the best words I think I've ever heard. We might have to get that in a quote, cool. The entire thing in a quote. And we're going to have to put that up on the Noviland wall. And we're going to quote Firing the Man. My favorite podcast, Firing the Man with Ken Wilson.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's a great quote.
And where can everybody find your podcast? You guys are on all the major platforms, right?
Yeah, we're syndicated on, I think, 19 different channels. Anywhere you listen to your podcast, you can find it. Firing the Man podcast. We also have a website, firingtheman.com. You can find us there. You can reach out at support@firingtheman.com. So all of those places.
Any guidance on how to fire the man, or if someone reached out to you, would you give them tips or advice on next steps?
Yeah, absolutely. We've done a couple podcasts with small business owners that are just starting, and so we like to do those. And you can always reach out to us, like I said, at the email. We have a voice tool on the website. You want to leave us a voice message, we'll reply. Yeah, so anytime.
That's amazing. That's dedication. A voice tool on the website, and you will reply to them. I'm gonna have to take you up on that. I'm sorry, Juan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, do
My
it.
boss isn't here.
All right, awesome.
No.
Well, thank you so much, Ken. We really appreciate your time, dear.
Yes, excellent. Thank you guys for having me on the podcast.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Ken.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.